Hey everybody, Kelly Zitlow here, and I have Patrick MacQueen back in the house with Medalist Legal. Patrick, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. How are you, Kelly?
Good, good. It's been a minute or two. I'm excited to have you back today.
I'm excited to be back as always.
Well, I was thinking about what should we talk about, and we might as well just dig into NAR and NAR settlement. Why not? Because there's some stuff going on, and I think right now it feels like it's out there, it's been talked about to death, but there's some real deadlines that are pending. So can you just kind of give us an update? What do we need to know, specifically directed to real estate agents?
That's a big question actually, and so I'll give you a bunch of stew here to stew on and think about. So, almost exactly a year ago from today, when we're filming here, we had a jury verdict against the National Association of Realtors, and there's all sorts of findings of fact by this jury, and they said that and the NAR was guilty of various things, and brokerages colluded with them. Then you fast forward a few months, we have all of these settlements. These settlements started coming out in March and May. And then we have the implementation of these settlements having started a few months ago in August. And we all know that there's big financial terms of this settlement. And we all know that there's some practice changes as well that have come about this. And we can kind of get into some of those and some of the opinions that I've heard on that. But the lawsuit, believe it or not, is not over. So normally when you settle a lawsuit, the parties agree to dismiss the lawsuit, and the lawsuit is done. Everybody moves on their way, payments are made, and that's it. But in this particular situation, we have somewhat of a weird posture. We had a settlement, we had practice changes that were implemented, and now we have to have this sort of review by the court to make sure that the settlement's fair. And so that's a little bizarre. That's not what we typically do. Certainly not what we do in the state courts of Arizona. It's because it's such a large lawsuit. It's because it's such a large class action lawsuit that there are additional steps that have to take place. And so happy to get into some of these dates. Some of these dates have passed. To object to the settlement, to exclude yourself from the settlement, and those deadlines actually came up at the end of October. And so I'm curious to see what people have put on the record about the settlement. I'm curious to see who's trying to exclude themselves, which may mean they're going to try to continue to sue brokerages or the NAR here.
All right. Well, so I think we should get into some of the deadlines, Patrick, but help me kind of walk through. So this is a huge class action lawsuit, and they're kind of doing something that you said is not normal. So generally it's settlement, and then it's, post settlement, whatever actions have to take place. And now they're going back to deem whether the settlement was fair. I mean, what's that really mean? Are they just crossing the I's and dotting the T's, or is there a chance that this might be unturned, if you will?
I don't think so. I think we've got so much forward momentum with this, and people are finally starting to understand what they need to do, how they need to comply. All these practice changes have gone into effect. I think it'd be hard to imagine a scenario under which the court says, you know what, I'm not a big fan of this. So my guess is this will be somewhat of a rubber stamp. It's called a fairness hearing, and the court is going to be there to decide if this was fair in light of the risks associated with moving forward, in light of the risks associated with what the NAR faced, in light of what the settlement amount is as well. So it's considered a fairness hearing, but from what I've read, I don't know that there's going to be anything that's going to stifle what's been done already. I sure hope not. And so there are some important dates. If you wanted the opportunity to make an objection to the settlement, or you want to be heard at the fairness hearing, again, I'm using fairness hearings in quotes because most judges don't get into fairness. You had to file those objections, and you had to file those requests by October 28th. And so it's beyond October 28th. So you're not going to be able to be heard, but other people who may be in similar situations as you have that opportunity to be heard. So there's also the opportunity to exclude yourself, and you had to have excluded yourself by October 28th as well. So if you wanted to exclude yourself from the settlement, meaning you're not part of the settlement, you don't get any of the settlement proceeds, you don't get any of the cash that's coming out in May of 2025, a little bit later. If you wanted to do that, you needed to exclude yourself by October 28th as well. So a lot of key deadlines have just come up. The other thing that is interesting, I think, with respect to where we're at with the NAR lawsuit is the application for attorney's fees. The application for attorney's fees by the plaintiff's attorneys. They submitted an application for attorney's fees, which is typical in these types of situations because they're getting paid out of the proceeds. Their application for attorney's fees was somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million. And so we have these attorneys who are seeking a large portion of the settlement funds as attorney's fees. And it's not lost on me that attorneys were here trying to change the way in which real estate agents get paid, and then turning around and saying, well, make sure you pay us our $200 million. And so, yeah, I don't know how I quite feel about that.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So when you say you, in the context that you were just talking in, are you meaning you to the real estate agent or you to the consumer? Like, are you talking to me as a homeowner and I needed to do something if I felt wronged or wanted to get my name on the list? So you're talking just consumers, people that own homes in this country.
Yeah, so there's a list of affected time periods. So if you sold your house, and I think it's between, I'm kind of guessing here, but I think it was between 2014 and 2020 or 2014 and 2019. If you sold your house in the state of Arizona, if you sold your house in another state, these are the timeframes that you have if you want to be a part of the settlement or you want to opt out of the settlement.
Sure.
And so you as a seller, as a former seller of real estate.
Okay. And so those timelines have passed. What is pending? What do people need to know today about the upcoming deadlines?
Yeah, so in terms of the upcoming deadlines, there's nothing they can really do at this point. There is that fairness hearing, November 26th. And then next May of 2025 is when they're actually going to likely start providing people with money. So there's no money yet that people can have if they were if they were considered a plaintiff in this. So there's no money yet, but May of 2025 is really when things are going to start getting passed out.
Did you hear much on a messaging standpoint to sellers of real estate in this time period? From my seat,
Not at all.
I only heard all the action part of the settlement and, what brokerages were going to do to change their documents and their processes and buyer's agents and listing agents and kind of the real world, what is happening on the street. But I don't know that I remember seeing or hearing anything truly directed to consumers or sellers in this context.
No, there's a very generic website that people can go to and find out a little bit more of these dates and a little bit more information about what I'm talking about. But that's really it. And so if this was such a big lawsuit for all of these people who felt ripped off by the real estate industry to get some money back, they've not done a good job of communicating how to get that money and what their rights are, because I had to do some serious digging to find these dates in the first place. And I had to have some access to a couple of different places that I have to pay a subscription to get access to. So it's not out there in the public, that this was all about waving the white flag and saying, hey, the 6% commission's going away. The real estate agents are bad. But, for those people who are truly affected, there's not much messaging out there, unfortunately. One of the interesting things, and this is a little off topic, this is not what you asked me, but one of the most fascinating thing, and I don't know how I feel about this, one of the main plaintiffs in one of the largest lawsuits, you may have heard about this, his name is Josh Sitzer. Right after this thing gets settled, right after these practice changes begin going into effect, he creates his own brokerage. It's this sort of a la carte real estate brokerage or real estate firm where he's going to be providing the services that traditionally have been provided by real estate agents and doing them for these a la carte services and a la carte fees and flat fees. And so it's like, well, wait a minute, was the whole lawsuit just to allow you to start this new business, or was this an idea that you came up with during the pendency of the lawsuit because of what you learned? A lot of people aren't real thrilled about hearing that news.
Yeah, I had heard that as well. Definitely thought provoking. And it's not that there haven't been flat fee types of brokerages out there in the past. So, I mean, those did exist in theory.
That's true. That's true. And I don't know if he's pitching this as something different than those other ones that existed in the past or not, but his name associated with this and associated with the lawsuit has kind of not made a lot of people real happy. And I think that they think that perhaps the lawsuit was really just a ruse, and there's all these theories and stuff about it. Maybe they're true. I don't know. Pretty fascinating though.
Yeah. What are you hearing from real estate agents today? I know, kind of July, August, so much conversation with brokers and agents and all the things, but now we're heading into November, or we'll be in November by the time this airs. What's the word on the street? What are you hearing? Are you getting as many phone calls, or what do I do types of conversations? Are those still being had?
I would say at first we were getting calls every day, like, hey, what can I do at an open house? Hey, what do I do when they ask me this? Hey, what's this? What's the difference between this document and this document? But right now, things actually seem pretty smooth.
Yeah.
And I've actually talked to a couple of real estate agents who are like, I'm actually getting a bigger commission than I ordinarily got when I was the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's now easier for me to tout my services. That there's this discussion that may have been missing in some of these situations that's creating a lot of trust. And so what I'm hearing is that it's actually been somewhat positive. Everybody's kind of annoyed with the 20 or some new forms that each state has come out with. But for the most part, I'm hearing, hey, I'm getting paid as usual. I'm getting perhaps a little bit more because I'm asking for a little bit more and it's not getting cut. And so, it's not sounding as bad as everybody sort of made it sound that it was going to be at the beginning.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think initially there was just so much unknown and what to do and how to say it and what to, but now I think that everybody's settled in and they have their processes and, how they're honestly, there's more transparency, which is really the root of this. So, I think now it's just about having really great conversations and being able to document your value add. And at the end of the day, I mean, separate representation, in my opinion, is something that I would want. And I think if agents are learning how to have that conversation and really be able to explain the difference. Although last night during the Dodgers game at the World Series, there was a commercial by a company, I think it was home or homes.com, and they were just pitching, hey, go direct to the listing agent and kind of countering against Zillow, don't sell your information as you're listing and get the call direct. I thought that was interesting. So there's going to be so many different spinoffs, whether it's what you're referring to with, this is it Spencer,
yeah.
Or, now the counter against Zillow. I mean, it's just beginning, think about this 3 years, 5 years from now, it's going to be completely a whole different game, because what we know is real estate is very entrepreneurial and there are a lot of thinkers in the space, and they will adapt and they will be creative and they will bring to market something that is needed, or at least is perceived to be needed. And so I was watching the game. I'm like, what is that? So, did you see that commercial?
I didn't see that part of it. No, I'm doing a much better job because of all the political ads of recording and then fast forwarding. So yeah, I must have missed that one.
Well, all right. So no other big deadlines that we need to be paying attention to, other than This thing is continuing to progress. Do you have any advice for real estate agents right now? Anything that you've learned over the last 90 days to 120 days that you just want to reiterate as we share this with our audience?
I really think it's continue to ask the questions, continue to learn, continue to seek out assistance from brokerages or your designated brokers. I think that's huge. Things come up. I think there will be some changes in some of the forms at some point as patterns and certain things play themselves out. But right now, as long as you can continue to understand what's going on, a lot of people didn't realize that the case was continuing and it's still going on. And so just the knowledge that's out there, tap into it, try to learn as much as you can, continue to learn as much as you can so that you can educate. Because I think, what we see are buyers and sellers and homeowners who just haven't been educated. I've run into situations where the sellers don't think they have a commission obligation anymore at all. They've signed a document that says they do, but they're holding up deals because they didn't think they had to pay a commission. And it's just this sort of line of thinking is so incorrect. And if we can continue to get people understanding how it works, it's really not that difficult. There's 4 or 5 major changes that happen. Once we comply with those, we're good. But just to continue to get that education out there.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Patrick, as always, thank you for your insights. We'll be standing by and watching closely as this thing continues to come together. And thanks so much. I'm sure we'll have you back on this once we move forward or the system moves forward with the finalization of the settlement.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.